And welcome to the Transcend and Succeed show. I'm your host, Dawn Livingston, and joining me today is Sally Lewien, a luminary in the field of holistic healing, specialising in lymphatics and spine care with a profound understanding of neuroscience. With 2 decades of experience, Sally is here to illuminate the connections between the nervous system, spirituality, breathwork and light therapy, and offer invaluable insights into self-help and the transformative power of education in changing lives for the better. So welcome to the show, Sally.
Hello, nice to be with you today.
Thank you for coming to join us. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So firstly, can you please tell us your story, your light bulb moment that turned your life around?
Yeah, as you can tell, I have an accent also. We were born in similar areas of the world. I started my life out in England and chose a pretty stressful path for myself, if I'm honest. It was my journey and I fully embraced it, but it's not been an easy one. So at 18, I moved away from my family and moved to America, not realizing that it was going to be for the rest of my life. It was supposed to just be for a 12-month period. It was an au pair opportunity. I came to Boulder, Colorado to be a nanny and lived with a wonderful family there and took care of a little girl for a year. Well, a year ultimately turned into, this year is 31 years, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's been a while. There's a story there. But like I said, it wasn't always comfortable. I didn't choose an easy path. But it was my path. It was my journey. And in with that was living 5,000 miles away from my family and the trials and tribulations that came with that. And then I married, and that was an abusive relationship. I married an alcoholic who had alcoholic parents. So there wasn't really anywhere to go with that, and taught me a lot of lessons. And like I said, not a lot of it was pleasant. It created an awful lot of stress, which I didn't realize at the time what it was doing to my body physically, or to ultimately my spirituality. And in that relationship, I miscarried twins, and then I went on to have a healthy pregnancy, and I had my darling daughter. So I have had lots of experiences in my life that give me an opportunity to sit in a place of compassion, a place of understanding for people who have gone through high levels of stress. And I know now on the other side of it what it did to me physically. I was and do understand the battered wife syndrome. I understand the neurology of it. I understand what holds you and traps you in that space, that addictive brain chemistry. I experienced it myself. And because it was not my journey to stay in that relationship, I had a child, and my mothering instinct came in big and strong. When Mama Bear comes forward for me and my daughter, it's intense. I love being a mom, and it was the maternal instinct in me that ultimately allowed me to leave that abusive relationship. It was abusive for both of us. And now we're doing very well, both of us. But we've come through that. We've learned how to deal with the stress. It ultimately went inside me and physically manifested into lots of problematic symptoms, things like migraines that would show up almost like a stroke. It would take my speech away. It was extremely debilitating. I couldn't play with my child. I was lost and in pain, and the stress just kept piling on and on and on because of the relationship I was in. Even when I left the marriage, obviously we had a child together, so it doesn't just go away. And then I decided in my wisdom to start my own business and become an entrepreneur, because that's not a stressful way to do life, right? And so there was a few years of that and lots of business decisions and rubbing shoulders with people that caused stress over the years. And a couple of years ago, I found myself at a place where I was in a hole. I was in a deep hole. I understand depression, and you'll have to excuse me if this makes me emotional, because
Sure.
I truly walked the line of not wanting to be on the planet anymore. I didn't. I did not want to be here. If there was a button to press that would not have made a mess for somebody else to clean up, I would have pressed it a bunch of times. And I was lost. And I can remember being in there and feeling like I was missing spirituality. I didn't have the words for it. I didn't understand really what it meant, but I knew there was something outside of myself, bigger than me, that I was missing a connection with, that could ultimately bring me peace and joy and a way out of this hole I was in. Because if you've ever been depressed, and I'm gonna get a little technical here just for a second, but there is a huge difference between circumstantial depression and chemical depression. So circumstantial depression would be, your dog died last night and it's been in your life 14 years and you don't know what to do with yourself. Of course, you're going to be depressed. You're not going to want to keep going in life. You're going to be that depressed. But usually that subsides after a while when it's circumstantial depression. How you can tell the difference between circumstantial depression and chemical depression is it doesn't go away when you apply the things that should make it better. So, for example, that would be for me, if I put myself in nature or I listen to music, I can shift the chemistry in my nervous system. I can shift the chemistry in my brain. I can go to bed and have a really good night's sleep and wake up the next day feeling better. The depression has shifted, and that is more circumstantial than chemical. If I go to bed and I feel like crap and I've applied all my tools and I wake up the next day and I'm still in the hole as deep as I was the day before, if not deeper, that's chemical depression. That's different, and therefore we treat it differently, we experience it differently. But I was there, I was in that hole, and I, even with all my tools that I had at that point a couple of years ago, because I'd been in the business 18 years at that point, I was still struggling to find a way out. And COVID had come through, and there was a lot of stress with COVID, with work, with relationships with people. it had really all compounded into a lot. Plus, I was diving into perimenopause. And so, oh boy, there was all kinds of chemical stuff going on in there too that I really didn't understand and didn't have a roadmap to. So I was in a hole. I was in a really dark hole a couple of years ago, and I was introduced right before I dived into that deep hole. I was introduced to a lady, also another Dawn, and she managed to introduce me to a new modality that I'd heard of, and I was a bit like, I'm a clinical practitioner. I'm a medical practitioner, and I don't do woo-woo stuff, right? That was the adage I'd had up to that point, because I'd made a very big effort in my practice to stay clinical. I can talk clinical, I can talk medical, I can operate in those worlds, and I have a good reputation in those worlds. And I didn't want to muddy the waters by, adding something like Reiki or breath work or meditation or something like that. But whether I liked it or not, those pieces were showing up in my life. And they were showing up for me personally to experience a way out of where I was. And so this lady came forward and she introduced me to breath work. And I'm open to those kinds of things. I'm a very open person, and I'm very scientifically minded, so I can understand how it works with the nervous system and how breathing is really, like meditation. It's a really nice way to calm your nervous system. But I went into an experience, multiple experiences of breath work, and peeled away layers and layers of things. I cried, I shook, I screamed, I sobbed, I moved my body in ways that I didn't realize it could move or needed to move or wanted to move, but it did. I had no control over it. And I found my way back. And one of the, sorry, I didn't realize this was going to be one of the breath works that I did, and this was the aha. One of the breath works I did, I got a very, very clear picture, what you usually do when you're in deep. And I got a message that my job was to help people back to the light. And I got a very clear image of combining light in any form, but specifically light therapy, with breath work, and how incredibly powerful that could be for people to find their way out of similar situations I was in, or to deeply, deeply heal their bodies with innate therapies. Now, you're going to hear me say that throughout this hour, and it's really important, that piece, innate. It means it's something that our bodies recognize. Our bodies don't have to work to know what to do with it. That's what I mean when I say innate. And yeah, that was, I came out of it with a very clear picture of the business I needed to build, or how I needed to incorporate this into my business that exists, to help people find their way back to the light. And that can mean different things for different people. If you're a spiritual person, it means divine light. If you're not a spiritual person and you're a very physical person, then it means sunshine, right? But the light is also our internal light, our power within ourselves, which glows and is infinite in our supply. But we lose our connection, and we lose our connection through lots of different reasons. And I've just kind of expressed a few of those really stressful pieces that ultimately, bit by bit by bit, was taking my connection, I do believe in divinity. I do believe in God. So for me, it is a spiritual connection. And I've really, truly felt that grow and open. I don't think it ever went away. I just think I had put on layers and layers and layers of stuff that meant I wasn't able to receive, was the biggest thing. And so I've actually had to retrain myself after having that breath work, after having that experience, after understanding really what was happening and wanting to experience it in myself again. One of the biggest things I say to myself when I'm in breath work, when I'm meditating, when I'm getting any kind of self-care or giving myself self-care, is receive. It almost has to be like a chant to myself. Receive, receive, which is open. Let the layers melt away, open up and receive. And when I was able to do that, my energy shifted. Things started to change in me and around me. The darkness started to fade away. And that's not to say since that day I haven't gone back into that hole. I have. But I don't stay there very long. And these days I'm heading that direction. I have super tools these days to turn myself around and pull myself out. But that's only doable if you have the awareness of where you are and that there's a problem to start with. And so many of us don't even have that. So I feel incredibly blessed that I've had the journey that I've had. And there have been long periods on that journey where I've felt like a victim. I've screamed at the universe and said it's not fair. I've walked away from God and spirituality because I didn't think it was real, because how could it be if I was being put through this torture?
Yes.
Right? But now I'm on the other side of it, and now I can thoroughly understand the journey and see the path and be, like I said, feel extremely blessed that I've had these opportunities to experience it in my own body before I can put it out there into the world and help other people with it. But that is my sole purpose, is to help creatures, not only humans, creatures on the planet with trauma and pain. And I've kind of come to it organically. So
that was the missing part of your jigsaw, wasn't it? The missing part of your jigsaw.
Yeah, and along the way, I've been filling my brain with all the science over the years, and now I've got that alignment. I can explain it all to anybody, from a scientific standpoint or a spiritual standpoint. And it is possible to have that alignment, and it's incredibly powerful and just turns the light on.
Yeah. And I know we'll probably get around to talking a bit more about, the breath work and the light therapy, but I'm interested to understand what was your decision? Why did you decide to become a lymphatic and spine specialist?
Well, that's most of my journey is I say it's been my choice, and it has. It's all a choice to do everything every day, right? But I've been incredibly fortunate to just have these people show up in my life. And a couple of years after I started out in massage school, and a couple of years after I got out of massage school, I was fortunate enough to meet a guy named Frank Jarrell. and he became my mentor. And he was the first person that taught me about the nervous system. As a massage therapist, I really, really believe that it should be included in school, and it's not. I came out of school as a drive-at-home deep tissue massage therapist with a sharp elbow. And I used my elbow as my primary tool because everybody loved it. And I could go all the way down to the bottom of everything with my elbow. And it actually shakes me to my core now to think that I probably damaged a lot of bodies in those early days before I really understood what I was doing. And then I met Frank. Frank taught me about the spine. He's a chiropractor, but he invented a soft tissue technique called spinal reflex therapy. And that was ultimately what I started to specialize in. And it taught me about the nervous system. It taught me about so many pieces of the body, and was the beginning of that journey. And then all my soft tissue work changed, and I was no longer inflicting pain on bodies because it's not necessary to inflict pain on bodies to facilitate a healing response. In actual fact, if you're putting pain into the body, you're less likely to get the healing response. So when I say people showed up, I mean, like, I met the guy once, and within the first meeting, he decided, called me right afterwards and asked me to be one of his instructors. And I kind of went, what? Like, you barely know me. Where did this come from? Oh my God, what an amazing opportunity, right? Plop straight in my lap. And I worked with Frank for over 10 years. I taught classes all over the world with him. He changed my life and he changed my work. And I'm so grateful for that period of my life. And then after and in and amongst all that, I found lymphatic work. Similar kind of situation, but this time it came through my clients. I was getting frustrated that I couldn't achieve bigger things for them. I had the SRT stuff, and that was great, and that was making huge changes as far as pain and structural alignment and different things like that in the bodies, but there were still weird pain things showing up and problems with tissue, and I couldn't get to the bottom of it. And then lymphatic showed up on the scene, and honestly, I don't even know how it came across my view. And as soon as I took my first class, I was in love, and I was like, "Oh my God, this stuff is magic!" Wow. And so I dived straight down the rabbit hole there and just started taking more and more classes and doing research. And I don't ever like stick to one vein. So if you ever take classes from me, you'll know that there's like, I'm not a gatekeeper. I love to share. And so when I find something that I like, that works, and I try it on myself first, I will put it out there to the world. And so I got super excited about lymphatic work because it was making huge changes for my clients, beyond what I'd already done. And then it became, okay, how do I teach other people how to do this for themselves? Because my hands are getting tired, man. Like, I can't touch all the bodies. How can I possibly get this information to more and more and more people? And that's when the education piece took off, and I just started teaching people about lymphatic and spine. But those two pieces I found to be such an integration with the nervous system. So if you can work on soft tissue spine stuff and you can work on lymphatic pieces, you can pretty much have a conversation with the nervous system. And it is amazing what happens from that point. And it's all innate. You're not creating any pain. You're talking in the language the body already understands. And it's like it just takes a huge sigh and says, thank you. Somebody finally figured it out, right?
I totally understand what you're saying about, if you're inflicting pain on somebody, about my back injury. I had so horrible sciatica, and I was going for treatment to try and help me get a bit more mobile because I was just so tense and so tight. All the muscles down my right side were so tight. So somebody just putting their finger on my lower back or on the back of my leg would have me on the ceiling. And I know people say, there's no pain, there's no gain. I think I would have to say I don't agree with that at all, having been in that position. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, and would you like me to explain that to you?
Sure.
So it's as simple as this, and this is what I teach my people in relationship to pain. This is your pain scale, right? So your pain scale goes from 1 to 10. 5 in the middle is where we push over. So 1 to 5 is no pain and I'm relaxed and calm and everything feels good. And above 5 is where you start pushing into, serious pain. 5 on that pain scale is where we push from what we call parasympathetic into sympathetic. So that is an actual chemical change in your autonomic nervous system that tells your body, hey, there's a problem. You better look outside at the stimuluses, what's causing this pain, or things will start to lock down, like the body will get tense because it doesn't know. All it knows is there's a problem because the chemistry is starting to change. So what that does is, take it all the way back to the caveman days, right? You're running from a dinosaur. One of the first things that's going to happen is you're going to empty your bowels. And if you've ever been nervous or you've ever been in a fearful situation and you've pooped your pants or you've had to jog to the bathroom real quick, that's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. That is an autonomic nervous system, automatic response from the body to say, I absolutely don't need that. That's slowing me down. Digestion is the last thing in the world that I need right now. Gone. I'm not even. So what is the number one thing that happens when we live with a high stress in our lives? We get gut issues, right? That's why, because the chemistry is off all the time. So if you push to that 5 point, you're changing the chemistry. Now, I'm not saying don't ever do it. Of course, you need it. Like if you're running away from something and you got to really get to it, you need that adrenaline push to get you out of there. It's how the body was designed. But unfortunately, in this day and age, we have way too much stress in our lives and way too much sensory stimulus, high-wired sensory stimulus like technology, which pushes us up into sympathetic all the time, which means that we're actually eating away at our systems inside our body with the wrong chemistry is what we're doing. And that's not, you're not going to learn, you're not going to recall information, you're not going to heal, you're not going to be happy, you're not going to be able to live a joyful life, and you're not going to have spiritual connection if you live your life in sympathetic tone all the time. So that's one of the first things that I teach my people, whether they come for hands-on treatment or they just take a class with me, is you need that awareness to know where you are on that scale of 1 to 10. Yep. And there's different things like your energy can be on that scale, your pain can be on that scale, your emotional wear-all can be on that scan, right? Like there's lots of different things that you can put on that scale that teach you to check in with your body every day, so you have more of a awareness of how you're doing. Can I stand going into that really stressful meeting today, or is it just going to push me over the limit to a point where I need to step away from it today? Is today the day that I need to go see my in-laws because my mother-in-law can press my buttons like nobody else on the face of the planet? And if she presses them today, I might actually fall apart, and I'm going to take it out on the kids. I'm going to take it out on my husband. It's going to physically manifest, and I'm probably going to put on a couple of pounds from it, right? Like, all of these things are real. And if we have better awareness about ourselves, then we know what we can actually take on in a day, and that transfers into our health and well-being.
Sure. And it's lack of awareness in a lot of things. We just need to, have that additional information and I teach this a lot, you've got to be aware of something. So you've got to have the information, and that can shift your perception. And if you shift your perception, it can change your life. So great stuff you're giving us, Sally. I think now it's a good time for us to take a quick break, but stay with us because Sally's going to tell us her fun fact. So stay there, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
And welcome back to the Transcend and Succeed show. I am here today with Sally Lewien, and we are talking lymphatics and spirituality and breathwork and lots of other delicious things. But first, Sally, tell us your fun fact, please.
Oh boy. I can't sit still, and I mean that literally, if there's music playing, which sometimes gets me into sticky situations. If I'm at a classical music concert, for example, and there's hundreds of people in the room, and I look around and nobody is moving. It's classical music. I'm not supposed to dance in the aisles, right? But I literally can't sit still, and I'll find the beat of the music will just come into my body, and that's it. But that's part of what I mentioned with the nervous system reset for me. If I'm around music, that's it.
You've got your feet tapping and your hands on your
knees.
And
another time, I just thought of another time it caused me a little bit of an issue. I actually sung at the Royal Albert Hall as a child in a big choir concert, and we were told that we were all supposed to sit really still because, we were on show. And I couldn't sit still, and I was, giving the bob, and I looked across the hall and found my parents, and my mom was doing exactly the same thing. So I know who to blame it on.
You know who to blame. Yeah, at least you were happy. At least you weren't getting a telling off for being a rebel.
No, not like my sister who fell asleep on my shoulder, but.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So I know that lymphatics is your passion. So what does a typical lymphatic treatment involve, and who would benefit most from these treatments?
Yeah, so lymphatic is a very gentle treatment. There's no pain at all. Sometimes I do work pretty deep in the belly, for example, but it's all done in such a way that the nervous system is just in heaven. It loves it. And we work a little rhythmically throughout the body because the lymph has its own rhythm, and that's ultimately what we're reproducing with our hands. I use a couple of different things in my techniques that are really, really helpful. And these are these like innate pieces that I'm talking about. So one is vibration therapy. So if you receive work from me or you take my class, you'll see that vibration therapy is in there. And I love it because it's a super simple way for people to have a really big impact on their bodies. And it feels great while they're doing it. Literally all my clients have these vibration tools now. It's called a vibrating peanut. And I teach them how to do the same work so they can carry on doing it at home. And then these days, people are laying on an infrared or chromotherapy, light therapy pad, full body pad on the table while they're receiving lymphatic work. And this again puts light energy into the cells of our body, and light is stimulating again to the lymphatic system. So it makes the waters of the body move easier, makes the blood move easier, so all the tissues soften, and it makes my job really easily. And then my job is just to open the pathways and guide the fluid where I need it to go to decrease edema. Oftentimes people will have surgeries, and with the scar tissue, it means that the fluids of the body can't always flow the way that they did before surgery. You've literally cut through the tissue, and when it sews itself back together with scar tissue, there's a wall there now, and the fluids can't flow as they did before, and so you'll get pooling, so you'll get edema, swelling in certain areas. And whether that's selective cosmetic surgery, I do work with those people, or somebody recovering from a C-section or an auto accident. The population I would say I work the most with right now are breast cancer patients. And people who really struggle with breast health, people who have very painful breast tissue, and it's not just women, painful breast tissue, hard fibrotic breast tissue, or people who have gone in and had scans and they can't get clear images because there's too much fluid. There's too much fluid in those spaces. So they come in and I basically move the fluid. Now, it is a misconception to think that if I'm going to work on a space, I have to touch that space. So, for example, if somebody has a swollen ankle, I don't need to touch the ankle to move lymph out of the ankle. And I can explain that if you want to come and have a session. I'm not going to dive into all the details of it today. But the lymphatic system works like a pump and a vacuum. So if we clear lymph out of one space, it'll pull from another space. And so it's very, very gentle, and it's usually recommended after surgery. A lot of surgeons these days will tell you to go find a lymphatic therapist and get a treatment, and that's wonderful, and I'm really, really glad. But then some people will say to me, well, if I ever find myself in a bad way like that, I will make sure I come and get a lymphatic treatment. Now, as your lymphatic specialist, I'm going to say everybody should come and get a lymphatic treatment, or everybody should know about the lymphatic system and be able to treat their own if they don't want to go get a treatment from somebody else. It can be one of the best things that you can do for your immune system, for your brain health, for your aches and pains, for your joint health, the list for your digestive health. The list really can go on and on. If you think about it this way, most people know kind of where the blood is in the body. You know, we've all seen those red and blue diagrams, and the heart's in the middle, and it goes out one way and it comes back another way. And you know, well, if you think about all the places in the body where there's not blood, that's a lot of places, right? Because the blood travels through the veins. It's not just everywhere. It's in the veins. It's in the capillaries. It's contained in the vessels of the body. Lymph is pretty much everywhere else. So lymph fills in all the spaces where there isn't other things. And it is your immune system. And it is your waste disposal unit. So the shampoo that you put on your head when you washed your hair, some of the chemicals soak through the scalp and they go into the blood, and they have to find their way out of the body because it's not good for those chemicals to stay in there, right?
Sure.
So they make their way through and they find their way into the lymph and into the liver, and there's a huge amount of lymph activity in the liver, and then it pulls the chemicals out and it pushes it through the system and into the kidneys and the urine and the bladder and out of the body is the main way that we excrete fluids. Some of it does come out through the largest organ in the body, your skin. Right? And if you are detoxing or using any of these things that I'm recommending, and you start to see things coming out through your skin, or you're smelly or stinky, or you get a rash or anything like that, all those are normal detoxing responses. But the lymph system handles all of that. So, and one of the biggest areas where I am focusing and where I want other people to focus is the brain, because your brain is literally sitting in a pool of lymphatic fluid the whole time. So if you've got a high level of toxicity in your body, you know, we all like to, you know, fall off the wagon every once in a while and have a few drinks. It was just Christmas, right? And there'll be birthdays and there'll be celebrations and all the things. But we want to get that stuff out of our body as quickly as we can. Otherwise it deposits. And it deposits in your brain. Your brain's sitting in that stuff. And as somebody who's turning 50 years old this year, I can tell you things don't work as quickly as they used to do. Right? So we don't want any of that nasty toxicity staying in contact with our tissues or our brain any longer than we really need to. And so if you just touch the lymphatic system, even just a couple of times a week, really, I want you to do it every day. But if you just do it a couple of times a week, you can really get so much more of that toxicity out of your body, and you will be healthier for it. And it will show up in all kinds of ways in your health.
So for somebody then that doesn't go for regular massages and maybe doesn't have access to that, give us some examples of some ways that they can get their lymph moving.
Well, I want you to come and take my lymph class to start with, and it's all online, so, you know, and I can support you virtually, but I'm biased, of course, I would say.
Of course.
But within that class, I will teach you how to use vibration therapy. And it's literally as simple as you have a vibration tool in your hand and you follow a map of the body with numbers on it, and you put it in different places, and it stimulates the collection of lymph nodes. So we have hundreds of lymph nodes all through our body, but they do sit in certain areas in collections. So there's a lot in your belly, a lot in your belly. There's a lot in your armpits. And some people have kind of a sense, right? Like your armpits sweat a lot, right? There's a lot of things happening there. Our groin is another place. Behind the knees is another place. So there's areas of the body where if you just put a little bit of innate stimulation, what the body already knows, what the body likes, it doesn't have to work hard to figure out what to do with it, and you just excite the lymphatic system, you put energy into it in the form of vibration, the waters will flow and things will move, and you will be able to improve your lymphatic health and overall improve your health and well-being.
Great advice.
It's not difficult.
Not
difficult. It is, honestly, I believe, one of the biggest mistakes that we don't teach this to people, because it's simple and it can have a profound effect. Why would you not give that to people?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And just moving around as well, getting up and stretching a little bit, that helps to keep things moving. If you're like me, sat behind a desk for most of the day, it's hard sometimes to remember to get up and move around. So I've been good. You'd be very proud of me. I've been setting alarms for every 3 hours. My wee alarm goes off and I get up and wander around, or I'll jump on my rebounder for 5 minutes, and it's making such a difference. I don't feel so stiff and so
here's something you could do. You could get that vibrating peanut, and I don't, I just tell people to go find them on Amazon. It's like $60 on Amazon. And when you're sitting at your desk and you're in that 3-hour session, you can pop it in your groin, your belly, even under your feet, wrap it in a towel or a blanket and just put your feet on it. You could put it in your, under your hamstring, and just having it under your hamstring is going to just put a little bit of diffuse vibration all the way up into your body. So you're actually giving that stimulation to the lymphatic system while you're sitting there typing. That is, there's a huge connection between the posture that we find ourselves in most of the time these days, modern times, modern technology. It pulls us into a forward posture like this. And we're usually sitting at the same time, or we're looking
on
at
the phone,
right? And all of those postures cut off the lymphatic system.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who has all of a sudden had to go home and work because your workplace disappeared during COVID, and you find yourself sitting way more than you used to do, and all of a sudden, my goodness, there's fluid collecting around your middle and there's fluid in your legs, and maybe you're starting to have pain in your feet and your knees, and you don't understand why, because you're still getting out and walking. It's because you're sitting and your fluids can't move. So if you put a little bit of vibration on your body, you will stimulate and you will see results from that.
Great stuff. I want to quickly ask you how you see the connection between our nervous system and spirituality, the spiritual awareness.
Yeah, well, I touched on that a little bit earlier with my story, but it really is a strong connection. And it's the whole piece, I'm so glad you asked that, because it kind of ties everything together. The piece that we were talking about with the pain scale, and really having that awareness of where you are in your sympathetic, parasympathetic. And let me give that a little bit of a better description. So sympathetic is fight or flight. Most people have heard those words. And parasympathetic is rest and digest, right? So if we stay in fight or flight a lot, repeatedly, we basically get kind of a, whether we realize it or not, a little bit of a crusty exterior, right? We can lose our ability to receive because we're staying in our default. We are designed by default to be in survival mode. That's important to understand. So this is not something that you're actually fighting a little bit against your design here. But because we've brought in technology and we've brought in these other high levels of stress that we weren't really designed to manage, it's necessary. So this crusty exterior that we get, it means we don't receive. Our heart kind of gets hardened maybe a little bit. And if you're at that place, it's really difficult to have that flow experience with light, and whether that's again that soothing light that just melts your whole body when you sit in the sunshine. It gets harder to receive that. It gets harder to receive that melt. Or you're somebody who's receiving spiritual light and you're sitting on your meditation mat, or you're doing your breath work, or you're going to church on a Sunday and it's not going in the same way that it used to do, right? Like, Lord, why have you forsaken me? Where are you? Where are you? I can't feel you anymore. Where have you gone? That's where I got to, but I didn't have those words. And if you can connect to your inner light, you bring your power back.
Yes.
And when we bring our power back, we calm our nervous system and we open up our ability to receive. And that might just be receive from your spouse, receive from your kids, receive from the sunshine, receive from the earth. When I put my feet on it, I can ground and I can feel a vibration and I get something out of it. If you've got yourself locked in concrete all the time because you're protecting your heart and you're, Lord, why have you forsaken me? That sunshine's not going to be able to get through.
Understood.
And that is our default.
Yeah, we're
right?
we're starting to get back in alignment with our truth, with our true self.
Yeah. But it's challenging. That's our inner challenge, right? Because our chemistry and our design is to put us in sympathetic. Our design is our default is to be in survival mode. So we survive.
Yeah.
Because that's the bottom line, right? You're going to survive, you're going to procreate, the line's going to continue, whether you're happy or not. But as we evolve and as we spend more time on the planet, we should be figuring out how to do it.
And how to thrive, instead of survive. Yeah.
Exactly. How to thrive instead of just survive.
Yeah.
Right? And if we can figure out how to connect to that light, whatever that means to you, connect to the light inside, and recognize that that is where your power is. Your power, even in divinity, right? Like we connect, we give so much up, we receive so much. But we have to still have responsibility, and that sovereignty inside ourselves is the most important piece.
It sure is. Totally agree with you.
Right? We can't look out there for all the solutions.
No, it's not happening out there. It's happening in here. It's happening inside.
If you like, I want you know that feeling you get when you figured out a problem and it's been bugging you for ages and you did it all on your own and you didn't have to ask anybody for any help, and man, that feels good.
Sense of accomplishment, yes.
Sense of accomplishment. I want people to feel like that in relationship with their health and their well-being.
Great stuff. Can you...
Not where's the doctor and how do I go get the solutions and oh my God, they can't see me for 2 weeks, I'm going to die by then. No, there's an awful lot that you can do for yourself just by making that internal connection.
There is indeed. Okay, and put some information on the screen, Sally, if you wouldn't mind telling people how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is to talk to me by phone. And we do that by setting up a free 30-minute consult. You can find contact information for me on the website, sallylewien.com. Just make sure you spell the last name right. And I have lots of offerings. I'm basically creating experiential opportunities for people these days. I want people to experience these light therapy devices and the classes and all the things. But it's all on the website, and the best place to start is for me to help guide you into those things, is to have a free consult. Yeah. And I am ongoing events all the time. So if you are somebody who likes to do things in person, there's always information on the website about that.
Sally, thank you so much. That's fantastic education you've given us. I'm really happy that you decided to come on and talk to us today. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been really nice to share this time with you.
You're so welcome.
And I hope this is helpful for people. I really do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much to the viewers, whether you're watching on demand or live. I want to say thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this great guest that we had today, Sally Lewien, and we will see you next week.